Good morning, folks. Yeah, that was weak. Good morning, folks. All right, let's get started with some energy. So, do I have a clicker, by the way? I probably should have asked that question. If somebody could run one up to me. All right, great. So I started this out, presentation 7 secrets the insurance industry doesn't want you to know, and then building the presentation, we came up with more, and there's even more. I probably have to split it into 3 parts because there's lots of stuff the insurance industry doesn't want you to know. But before we get into this, I want to just quick housekeeping thing. We all go to storms. The APA and another organization we're involved with shows up very early, and we see who's there and who's doing what. Cal and Melanie and Sean show up with their smoker and feed people. They're not there making money. They're not there to do business. They're showing up to do service to the community, and Cal pays for it out of his pocket. And I've been through a natural disaster, and I will tell you how much to sit down and have a cooked meal served to you by people with a smile and sit in a little tent or on a table with people of your community, be able to share information, how comforting that is and what that means. And they're not doing it. And Cal's not going to ask you guys for money. Give him some money, please. Cut him a check before you leave. Send him a Venmo, PayPal. There's lots of ways. Please make sure this man doesn't fund all this out of his pocket. I was at a charity event last year for disaster survivors. Steve Badger was there, and I was like, Steve, I'm happy that you're here. And he said, you know what, Doug? One way or another, we all make our money off other people's misfortunes. And when we have an opportunity to step up, we should. And that's the insurance industry's #1 defense attorney saying that, and we should embrace that, right? What these people go through in disasters in the end puts food on our table. We need to step up when we have the opportunity. And can we have a hand for Cal and Melanie and Sean for what they do? Humble people, they're not going to ask you for money. Give it to them anyway. Jam a check down their throat. Because you know what? We all make a good living here. Well, I'm a nonprofit guy, I don't. But you guys all make a good living. All right, let's get rolling. I do this beginning of every presentation I do in the industry. Item #1, your integrity matters most. We're in the best position to hold insurers accountable when our own integrity is beyond question. Because there's lots of people out there whose political careers and corporate profits count on knocking you down and questioning your integrity and demeaning you in the public eye. So, we have to be conscious that as a market leader, you are setting the example. People are watching you that don't even like you. People are watching you that you don't even know. Competition, your own families, your customers, neighbors, your kids. Be conscious of that. You think no one's paying attention? They are, and they're learning from your example. So we talk about what's called old school business ethics. I was raised by Depression-era parents who taught me work ethic, who taught me commitment, and sometimes, I know you guys know this stuff, but we forget we have to teach this to the next generation. We have to codify what that means, those old school business ethics, and how do we teach that to the person who works for you now, maybe cleaning up debris or maybe doing paperwork and filing, but one day will own their own business and do this for real. It's important that we pass that on. So we talk about things, our guiding principle, what is in the best interest of the consumer? That's #1. Do business for the long run. Pass on the quick buck. Do all business as though a regulator was looking over your shoulder, because I promise you, one day they will be. And we'll talk about why. If you make a mistake, make it right, even if you lose money in the short run. Big deal, you'll make it back later. Your reputation is more important. And remember, as a leader, many eyes are learning from your example. It's so much easier for me being out there and pointing the finger at the insurance industry and the politicians they own and the regulators they own, when they can't just say, well, look what that dirty public adjuster did. Look at that contractor. Look at this slimy lawyer. That's what they use to demean you and to keep the focus off themselves. Okay? Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, all warfare is based on deception. That's their game. Be conscious of that. Secret number 9, the playing field is not level. The insurance company holds all the cards. They have all the experience, they have all the power. The odds are stacked against the policyholder. Insurers field an army of experts and professionals. They have all of the experience. That's why people need professional representation. The average person, how many homeowners claims are they doing in their lifetime? 1, maybe 2? Are you good at anything the first or second time you do it? No, you are not. The analogy I always use is like you're 8 years old and you show up for a Little League practice and the coach says, hey kids, we're going to play our first game this week. We're going to play the Yankees. And that's what it is. These people don't have a chance. All of the power and all of the experience is with the insurance industry. And who makes the final decision on how much they're going to pay you on that claim? The carriers do. It's a system that is ripe for abuse. Number 8, almost all insurance fraud prosecution is done to protect insurance companies, not you. By the way, you and your consumers are the ones who pay for all that. Your taxes and your premiums fund that whole system. So you would think maybe 50% of that system was to defend you. No, 0. Do a Google search on insurance fraud arrests. Tell me how many insurance company executives you see in handcuffs. You give us a little bit of time. We're about to change that in Florida. Fraud happens on all sides, but most fraud prosecutions defend insurers, almost never against insurers. Every insurer has an SIU that feeds cases directly to prosecutors. Anybody know what an SIU is? Don't be shy, Special Investigation Unit, exactly. It's like a detective bureau. And they're the ones that feed that to prosecutors. Prosecutors do not go out and look for insurance fraud cases. They sit at their desk and they're walked into them by the insurance company SIUs. And for some odd reason, the insurance companies never turn themselves in. Just you. And they are often fund the prosecutions through grants and premium taxes. So you have this cozy relationship between public prosecutors and the insurance industry. And the question is always, who represents consumers in this one-sided system? Do you know also that in every state in the country, if you turn somebody in for insurance fraud and you're wrong and they arrest them, they put their picture in the paper, which they like to do. They ruin their reputation. They ruin their business. They cost them thousands of dollars of legal fees. If you're wrong, they can come and go after you for civil damages. In every state in the country, if the insurance industry does that, they have civil immunity, statutory immunity from civil prosecution. Again, unless it's what's called malicious prosecution, where they actually, they kind of knew, and that does happen, by the way. Joe Radcliffe's a famous case. They knew they had exculpatory evidence. They knew he was innocent. They held it back from prosecutors, and Joe's lawyer was able to find it out. But that's a rarity. Who protects consumers in this one-sided system? And who pays for all this? The consumers. This is Texas. This is this year. Officials want a review of privately funded prosecutions. In Travis County, the fraud prosecutors had a partnership with an insurance company to specifically go after anybody who committed fraud against that insurance company. Does that sound fair? If you're a Travis County taxpayer, is that how you want your money spent? Now, by the way, that's fine as long as they're also defending you from insurance fraud. But they're not. Should American families whose taxes and premium dollars fund insurance fraud enforcement have a reasonable expectation to be protected from fraud committed by their insurance company? Absolutely. Is that what happens? It is not. Number 7, the insurance lobby is large and immensely powerful. Second most powerful lobby in America. They spend just behind number 1. Does anybody know what number 1 is? Big pharma. Fastest growing is private prisons, by the way. Money equals power in our system. You may not think it's right, you may not think it's fair, I personally don't, but the people who have the money have the access and the power. The insurance industry collects your money and uses it to consolidate their power. Every time you see a commercial on TV, which you can't watch anything without seeing, right? That's your money that paid for that, your premiums. Every time a check's cut to an elected official by a lobbyist, that's your money. Is your money being spent to make your life better, to defend you, to protect you? It is not. It is this industry that is gobbling up power. And I'll tell you one thing, we are not anti-insurance. I was a financial advisor for 30 years. I recommended tens of millions of dollars of insurance to my clients because it is an important risk management tool that the average American uses to defend themselves from a loss that otherwise would be catastrophic. We need healthy, resilient insurance markets. But what's going on here is the opposite of that. So we need to call it out. We need to stand up against it. What does all that money and power do? This is their spending over the years. 2022, I believe it was about $158 million in lobbying money spent, campaign contributions. That's big. Mark, right up here. You know how you show up late to a comedy show and they make fun of you? Right in the front, Mark. We'll get to you later. All right. What does all that money buy you? Well, some cases it buys you a state lawmaker. This is a case in Ohio where people were calling out insurance companies for committing fraud, requiring that they disclose profits. This one lawmaker was diligently defending them, saying how wrong it was, defending the insurance companies. They found out overwhelming majority of his campaign is funded by the insurance industry. Sometimes it buys you a whole legislature. This has just happened. Special sessions. Big, huge insurance crisis, biggest crisis in that state's in anyone's memory at least. And their answer was, let's gift wrap some legislation and hand it to the insurance industry. Let's make it harder for people to get legal representation. Let's make it easier for the insurance industry. That's what happens when you have that kind of money. There's an article out saying that the insurance industry spent $74 million in Florida over the last 10 years. $19 million to the Republican Party, $3.8 million to DeSantis, $2.2 million to Jimmy Petronas. That buys you a lot of power and a lot of influence and aligns a lot of people with you, because what lines your pockets as the insurance industry lines their pockets as well. And in some cases, it buys you a judge. Anybody remember this case? This is 2018 in Illinois. State Farm got caught putting aftermarket parts on their auto repair shops. They got $1 billion fine. They know all these big cases wind their way through the appeal system. It takes a couple of years for it to land on a judge's desk. They isolated which judge that was going to land on. They ran their own judge. They funded him behind the scenes with $90 million. He got elected, that landed on his desk, and he dismissed it. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. They got caught. They were fined $250 million. They still got away with the $1 billion fine being dismissed. So between that and the $90 million they spent, probably about $660 million savings. And I will tell you this, they undercut and subverted the whole United States system of justice by doing this. I'm a veteran, I take that very, very seriously. You should as well. And this is one of the instances that they got caught. Think they got caught the first time they've ever done this? That would be great. Likely not. Statistics would tell you this happens more often than you hear about. State Farm agrees to pay $250 million, avoids a racketeering trial. There was going for a racketeering trial. RICO case. Sometimes all that campaign money buys you a state CFO. CFO labels contractors and public adjusters locusts and predators, got up at the podium after Hurricane Ian and said, don't let anybody get in front of you, in between you and your insurance company. Don't sign anything. Contractors are predators, public adjusters are locusts. He called for the dissolution of the Florida bar. Who's aligned with consumers at the time of a claim? The insurance company? No. The interest of the insurance company and the interest of the consumer are adverse at the time of claim. And it's a zero-sum solution. If they pay you $1, they lose $1. But who is aligned with the interest of the consumer? Their restoration professional, their public adjuster, and their attorney. This guy seems to have a problem with everybody who helps the consumer and costs the insurance company money. He did get caught hiring a public adjuster after Hurricane Michael. What did I tell you the insurance industry gave him in campaign contributions to him and his Treasure Florida PAC? $2.2 million. And we're going to talk a lot about Florida today, and I will tell you why. There's a lot of bullshit that's happening in Florida that is coming to your home state. You might think, Florida, oh well, I don't care. No, 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 no. The sweetheart legislation that the Florida legislature handed over to the insurance companies in their special sessions is coming to your state. We've already seen it show up in Louisiana. This is how they do it. They have a bill mill write up a model legislation. They find a state legislature that they think is friendly to them. They've thrown enough money around that they now own that legislature. They ram it through that state, and then they go on the road, and they take it to every state and say, Florida's doing this, why aren't you doing it? And they fall for that all day long. I've testified to state legislatures, and they always ask me a question, well, what is everyone else doing? They need to know someone else is doing it, and they didn't get hauled into the town square and have their heads chopped off. They got, it's okay, and then they get permission to do it. This is what happens. The eyes of the nation are on Florida because what's happening there is coming to you. And a lot of these insurance companies we're catching doing shady stuff in Florida also do business in Texas and Georgia and North Carolina, Louisiana. So you might think it's just Florida. No, it's not. Anybody know about the Spanish Civil War? Spanish Civil War was a dry run for World War II. It was the first time that fascism stood up and joined together. General Franco from Spain, Hitler, Mussolini from Italy, and people came from all over the world to fight on one side or the other. They called them the International Brigades. And they tested out a lot of things that would later show up as systems in World War II. The Luftwaffe bombed a city. It was the first trial effort of something they called terror bombing that they would later use on Warsaw, on Rotterdam, on the London Blitz. It's called Guernica. Pablo Picasso did a famous painting to commemorate it, just dropping bombs on innocent civilians, which all sides did later in World War II. Florida is the Spanish Civil War. Everyone is watching what's going on. Everyone is trying what they think is going to advance their program. We are here to make sure that the consumer is represented. So we're going to talk a lot about Florida. You might think, I'm not licensed, I don't go there. No, no, no. Pay close attention because everybody else is watching. This morning, look at the date on the bottom. Our friend Jimmy Petronas woke up and had his cornflakes reading this. The APA turned a criminal case against a company called UPC over the Florida Regulators 2 years ago. It was also a civil RICO case. They buried it. It was the one that our chief criminal investigator, Nancy Dodd, who's a 30-year law enforcement, Department of Insurance fraud investigator, Highway Patrol, California fraud investigator, district attorney fraud investigator, she said, this case is stronger than 90% of the cases I've seen in my career. And Florida regulators buried it. Imagine the impact it would have had on the people in Hurricane Ian, who, by the way, as of March 9th, the last time they released statistics, they're hiding this, as of March 9th, 180,000 claims had been closed with zero payment. Zero. People who had damage and insurance got nothing. That doesn't factor how many people have been closed in the last almost 3 months since then, so we assume it's well over 200,000. Or how many people were dramatically underpaid, which I will put to you as likely a larger number. Imagine the impact if the insurance companies were put on notice when this case was prosecuted and said, oh no, the moral hazard is gone. They're going to effectively prosecute and enforce the law. They didn't. They found out we can do whatever we want, and they'll do nothing. We've spent enough money. Nothing's going to happen to us. And these people in Hurricane Ian, how many people here have worked Hurricane Ian? Just show of hands. These people are suffering. It's brutal. It's devastating. And here was a chance for the Florida authorities, the Florida law enforcement community, to step up and send a message that that's not going to happen. We are going to enforce the law. We are going to defend our consumers. And they didn't. So now you're outed in the press. Here's one paragraph, what Mr. Petronas read with his cornflakes this morning. The initial response from state regulators reflects how officials pursue complaints of fraud by policyholders and their advocates, but not complaints against insurance companies, said Doug Quinn, executive director of the American Policyholder Association. It was Quinn's association that referred the case to Petronas' office. There appears to be no motivation to go after insurance companies. And by the way, insurance regulators all over the country are watching this and they're thinking, I'm glad I'm not that guy because this is going to be ugly for him. Do you think he's going to be the Florida CFO and then go be a farmer afterwards? No, these guys like to go. He wants to be governor. DeSantis wants the White House. He wants the governor's mansion. This is going to be a problem for him. Fuck around and find out, Jimmy. Number 6, insurance regulators charged with protecting consumers are not necessarily objective or unbiased. Talking about insurance commissioners specifically. Something called the revolving door concept. And basically it says it's the problem where people who've regulated an industry leave that industry or leave public service and go to work for that industry, either directly with a big fat paycheck or as a lobbyist with a big fat paycheck. 60.5% of insurance industry lobbyists are former government employees, former regulators of the insurance industry. And you'll see $158 million they've spread around since in 2022 alone, 1 year. Here's a great study out of Georgia State University. 50% of insurance commissioners go on to high-paying jobs in the insurance industry. Do you think they know, while they're in their 1 or 2 years, 4 or 6 years as insurance commissioner, what their next move is? These are high-functioning people in careers. They know where they're going. They know what they're doing. They know what side of the bread gets buttered. Here's another study. The prospect of future employment in the insurance industry creates a pro-insurer bias in insurance commissioner behavior. They found the guys what they call revolvers. This is actually a Federal Reserve Board of Governors economist wrote this as her doctoral thesis. And I don't know if somebody has Slavic experience in what's try. I've tried so many times in public and I've butchered this name. I've embarrassed myself all over America trying. By the way, Anna is coming to speak at the APA membership summit in Dallas, November 1st to 3rd. What she found is that they went back and they researched people that went to work for the insurance industry. They researched their decisions while they were insurance commissioner and found a clear bias toward the insurance company. And this is what's known as the iron triangle of political influence. This actually comes out of the defense industry, but it is applicable to all. And basically at the top, you have legislative committees. Generally, most states have what's called an insurance and finance or insurance banking and finance committee. These legislations go through them. They have a way to bury them. They have a way to amend them. They have a way to push them forward if it's in their interest. And then they rely on the lower left, which is their insurance commissioner, who is being influenced, both sides, on the lower right by special interest groups. They call it the Iron Triangle because you, as Joe Schmo, the average American, living in a country that you believe is for the people, of the people, and by the people, have no chance of breaking into that. I've testified at state legislatures and been the only person there speaking for consumers. 5, 6, 8 insurance industry lobbyists in $5,000 suits all lined up to present to their friends who are sitting on the dais. Lawsuit alleges insurance department stalled enforcement to help commissioners campaign. This is Jim Donlan. We actually used to have a good relationship with Jim Donlan, and he seems to have turned. One of his own investigators whistleblew and said, you know what, we had a case we were going after where we had somebody that was an insurance agent, we had them cold, and he told us to stall because he wants to run for election and he wants it to come out before the election. This is the kind of manipulation, and we all hold insurance commissioners in high esteem. We all hold the NAIC in high esteem. Personally, I don't believe they deserve to be so. And if you look up, I do a presentation specifically on the kind of corruption and graft that's gone on with insurance commissioners. We did it at the APA Membership Summit last year. It would raise your hair. This changed my mind. I was like, we found somebody good. Regulator punishes 10 insurance firms, triples industry fines. This is just January of this year. Fines to insurers for various breaches include late payment of claims and failure to submit audited accounts tripled to $56.9 million. I was like, I'm going to meet this guy. What state is he from? I dug through the article, like it didn't say what state he's from. This is an example. This is someone we can hang our hopes on in America, that some of these regulators are going to do the right thing. And then I kind of looked at the website it linked me to. Kenya. So that meeting's postponed. The insurance industry is one of the nation's biggest advertisers. Huge. Spend a lot of money on advertising. The media, their businesses. This is just digital ad spending in the US. In 2024, it's projected to be $15.28 billion, just digital. That doesn't count radio, TV, that doesn't count billboards. Huge. And if you're a newspaper, if you're a TV show, trying to struggle and pay the bills, and you pay the bills but through advertisers, you might think twice before you do that anti-insurance story, before you out some of the nonsense that's going on. There's some of the stuff you're going to hear today that you've never heard anywhere else, and that's a shame, because this should be public where everyone knows it. And it has a way bigger influence than you think. Nebraska Law Review did a study. They actually use advertising to prejudice the jury pool. State Farm can't be guilty. They're a good neighbor. We're in good hands with Allstate. Nationwide is on my side. And that has an impact. It creates bias. Try to watch a TV show without seeing 5 insurance commercials. I can't watch a YouTube video without Flo up there telling me how awesome she is. Why do they spend so much of our money telling us how awesome they are? Influences jury pools. It sells familiarity and comfort. And I kind of mix-mash some slogans. You're in your neighbor's good hands, who's on your side. You all feel good. Everyone feels good, like they're in good hands and someone's on my side and they're my good neighbor, until what? It's time for a claim. Then sometimes it's a different story. And the big issue is the stories you will never see. I work with a lot of media. Anybody see Lester Holt, the story we did out of Fort Myers on the insurance fraud? Lester Holt is in the top 5 watched television programs in America in 2022. 7 million people a night. He does a nightly news show. 7 million people a night watch his show. We just outed the insurance companies in Florida for committing fraud. And we've isolated which of these reporters have the courage and the intelligence, because they all want to be Woodward and Bernstein. Anybody know who that is? Us old guys know. They're the ones that outed the Watergate scandal. Okay? They want to uncover this. They want to win a Pulitzer. But their editors and their advertising department and their legal department squash. So we've isolated which of the reporters nationwide have the intelligence to grasp what's going on, because it's not a simple story often, have the editorial support to actually publish it, because you'll see a lot of papers bury stories. That's why you're going to hear things today you've never heard before. This should be all over the news. It's not, okay? Or they'll pull punches. If you noticed in the Lester Holt story, it's on the APA website if you want to see it, they didn't name the insurance companies. That's one of the ways they pull punches. They said these insurance companies are doing this, they're doing that, third-party administrators doing this, doing that. They didn't name them. That's pulling punches. That's Lester Holt. That guy makes $15 million a year to tell you the truth, and he's pulling his punches because they're scared of the insurance industry. Trust me, they are scared. All that money, all that power, it's big. Intimidation techniques. This is a billboard I personally shot after Superstorm Sandy on the Atlantic City Expressway. Insurance fraud equals prison. If you're a consumer or a public adjuster or an attorney or a contractor, not if you're an insurance company. This is intimidation that's out there. And we always say, where's the billboard saying insurer fraud equals prison? Where are those? Where are the billboards that say, report your insurance company if they're committing fraud against you? They don't exist. This advertising thing, it affects freedom of speech as well. Because do the billboard companies or the radio companies want to let you run your ad? Here's a billboard the APA wanted to put up after Hurricane Ian. The billboard, national billboard company said, no, we don't want to do that. We don't run anything negative here. But they had no problem running report contractor fraud. It is suppression of freedom of speech. But the one thing I will tell you about the APA, if you don't know already, we never quit. We went to another company. And that's Lamar. They're a national billboard organization. They feel the same financial pressure from the insurance industry as everybody else. I think we kind of slipped it past them because a lot of people don't know the difference about insurer fraud, insurance fraud. And that's actual picture of the billboard right in the heart of the Hurricane Ian cat zone. Insurers have a long established history of discrimination. They always like to grab the moral high ground and point their finger down at you, you dirty locusts. This is from the NAIC itself. They created a committee to address structural racism. The insurance industry confronts its own racism. This is NAIC. Half of them are owned by the insurance companies. And they're admitting this happens. U.S. Department of the Treasury. Study impact of systemic racism, inherent bias in insurance markets. This is not just some leftist newspaper saying this, some rag. This is the United States Department of the Treasury. Consumer Federation of America, excellent. Granddaddy of consumer protection organizations. I love this organization. How racial discrimination in homeowners insurance contributes to systemic racism and redlining. Times, black homeowners struggle to get insurers to pay claims. ProPublica, minority neighborhoods pay higher car insurance premiums than white areas with the same risk. This is un-American. We don't single out groups of our citizens and say, we're going to charge you more and we're going to pay you less on claims. This is un-American, and it needs to be addressed. 3, insurers use your premiums to fund multiple organizations to protect them from fraud. Your money. National Insurance Crime Bureau in the upper left, pay attention to that. Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, a couple other organizations. By the way, does somebody have to take their meds, or is my time up? Take that pill, especially if it's an antidepressant. Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, we've been working with them. We're actually members. They've had a very pro-insurer bias because they're funded by the insurance industry, but they've been coming around, and we're actually having their executive director speak at the APA membership summit in November in Dallas. We're going to hold him accountable a little bit. Who else is coming just while we're on that? It's free for all APA members. Only APA members can attend. And if anybody's read Delay, Deny, Defend, how many people here have read Delay, Deny, Defend? Every hand should go up on that. It is a revolutionary book. It will open your eyes to what really goes on. Law professor Jay Feinman, who is actually on the build team for the APA, will also be coming and speaking at the APA membership in November in Dallas. Insurance companies are destroying people's lives, and cops are being paid to help do it. This is real. Did you guys celebrate Contractor Fraud Awareness Week? Did you have a barbecue or something? Where's Insurance Company Fraud Awareness Week? Where's the other side of the narrative? How does the insurance industry dominate this narrative, and there's no one pointing the finger back at them, right? And look who sponsors it, NICB, National Insurance Crime Bureau. They're telling a one-sided narrative, and we're allowing them to get away with it. 2, all that power can be turned on those who threaten the status quo. How many people here feel they've been bullied or intimidated by an insurance company? Just a show of hands. Don't worry, they'll get to you if you're not raising your hand yet. Oh, they hate whistleblowers. Los Angeles Times, whistleblowers. Insurer gets smacked for bullying employees. Phil Falcone, who, by the way, is a former New York State superintendent of insurance, then went to be a CEO of an insurance company, sues a whistleblower at the insurance industry, former chairman of Continental Insurance, was once New York State superintendent of insurance. They intimidate people who are whistleblowers. The APA works a lot with whistleblowers because they're, listen, the people on the other side, they're humans. They have a conscience. They're being pressured to do illegal, unethical, immoral things, and they're losing sleep over it, and they're getting ulcers because they know it's wrong. But not everybody has the ability to throw it all in the garbage and stand up and do something about it. I know a lot of people here, attorneys and public adjusters, used to work for the other side and said, you know what, I can't live like this. I'm going to jump and defend the consumer, and thank you for that. And whistleblowers are people that stand up against the most powerful industry or second most powerful industry in America and say this is wrong and this is what they're doing because they're really good at hiding this. All right? You watch what's going on in Florida. We had 3 whistleblowers come to APA board advisor Stephen Bush, who works with Galen Hare, who is here today, APA board advisor, and say this is what's going on. He brought it right to the APA. We put them in touch with our investigators immediately. They showed up. They testified to the Florida Senate. Do you understand what that's like, what they lined themselves up for? One of these guys is a 25-year-old kid. He's got a autoimmune disease that's very similar to MS. He has trouble walking. When we met to shoot with Lester Holt in Florida, he got stopped at TSA because he has braces on his legs. They wanted him to take it off. 25. He just flushed his career down the toilet. He's engaged. Imagine going to his fiance and say, my earnings ability just evaporated. 2 of the other guys, Mark Vincent, Ben Mandel, old school, put their time and their energy into building a career. And they're going to get blackballed. One of them told me we don't get calls anymore. Do you understand what heroes these people are? And sitting right here in the front is Mark Vincent. Stand up, Mark. Thank you. Because it is whistleblowers. Listen, always keep a line open to the other side. I know you get into beefs, you're on the roof and you're fighting. They got their side, they got yours, but always keep a line open because some of these people are going to come forward. They came forward to Stephen Bush because they said, oh, you know, he's not just another slimy attorney. Here's a guy with integrity. Here's a guy that's actually looking out for American citizens. And they went to him, and he came right to the APA. And guess what? As an attorney, we see a lot of attorneys. First thing they want to do is take this case civil, cha-ching, cash it in. Stephen's a hero. Galen, who works with him, is a hero. They brought it right to the APA, said, you know what, we're going to do the criminal case first. And then we're going to circle back, which, by the way, makes great business sense because civil cases, any attorney will tell you, can drag on for years, and then they settle, and everybody signs an NDA, and nobody gets fired, and nobody loses their job, nobody goes to jail, no one's allowed to talk about it, and everyone's in place to commit the same crime to another family tomorrow. You go criminal, that shit ends. So thank you to Stephen and Galen for stepping up and bringing it to the APA. And imagine how much easier it's going to be when you go do that civil case, because guess what? We've already paid for the investigation. The state's paid for the investigation, and you've got a guilty plea. OJ was found innocent criminally. They still got him on the civil side. Now imagine what it'll be like with this. Instead of helping out after disaster, insurance companies turn these people into criminal suspects. Intimidation. Injured woman secretly videotaped by insurer, then wrongly accused by fraud. This is their own customers they're doing this to. This is wrong. Florida bar asked the Supreme Court to discipline. It's just an abusive insurance lawyer. He used to be a prosecutor. He actually got fired as a prosecutor because he was too abrasive to people. Imagine that. Now he's an insurance company defense attorney, abusing people and intimidating people, threatening to embarrass them and threatening them with criminal charges. And the number one secret the insurance industry doesn't want you to know, especially this morning, April Hall, Morgan Walker, Heather Shapter, it's the APA, but really it's this. This is the first ever SIU in American history designed and built to defend you from insurer fraud. Where you as an APA member can turn cases into us, we'll investigate it, and we'll send it in as a criminal referral to legal authorities. God help them if they don't do something about it. We will not send a BS case. That's a promise we make to prosecutors. We know you have limited time, you have limited resources, you have limited budget, limited manpower. We will not waste your time with a garbage case. Maybe 3% of cases might be a criminal referral. Okay? Here's who runs it. On the upper left is one of the top insurance fraud prosecutors in America, Dominic Dugo. He ran a $13 million a year insurance fraud unit for San Diego County. By the way, one county in California, which I think has 58 counties, their budget was $13 million just for insurance fraud. And most of that was funded by the insurance companies. And my first question to Dominic was, hey, Dom, you ever go after an insurance company in 30 years? He said, once. Once, and then he didn't even have to think about it. He didn't have to search his 30-year memory. He was like, one time. And then he added, and then they never referred me another case again. That's power and intimidation. Because if you're a prosecutor, he had 70 employees under him. And you're going in for state grants, that's how your budget gets funded, and that's based on your prosecution amount of insurance fraud, your success rate. And if one of the companies that feeds you, the top of the funnel, that feeds you your cases says you're done, you're cut off, does that not threaten your salary, your budget, your employee's salary? They taught him a lesson. He's not a bad guy. That's just the way the system is set up. It's set up and it's stacked against consumers. We aim to change that. Upper right, Nancy Dodd, Chief Investigator, Marine Corps veteran. Told you before, she's a district attorney investigator, California Department of Insurance fraud investigator. And there's all the team of investigators. They're all 20, 30-year people, except for Angela, who's our law clerk. Scheduled to take the bar, so we're actually losing her. We have a new law clerk that's coming in, just started. This is a lot of power. And this doesn't exist anywhere else in America. This is the one tiny little thumbnail of a slice of people having the ability to have some fairness, consumers have some fairness in this system. And it'll get bigger. I promise, Dominic, one day you'll have 70 people working for you under the APA. I'm going to wrap it up because I'm probably over time. So, yes, Melanie. By the way, does Melanie look fantastic today? Oh. So, look, we have a proactive lobby because I had to go around the country and talk to prosecutors and say insurance companies are committing fraud, and I know most of them. I'm the first person that ever said that to them because they've only heard from insurance company lobbyists their whole career. Then we identify the fraud, we facilitate the prosecution of that fraud, and then we publicize it. This is exactly what is happening in Florida right now. And you can bet the Florida authorities do not want to prosecute this case. The more we keep it in the press, the better. Washington Post is going to publish another article. I've been working with Brianna Sachs. A whole bunch of our members here and our board advisors, I've introduced her to, have been feeding her info. She's going to publish another expose probably within the next couple of weeks. This isn't going away. The APA is not going away. And that's our message. That's why I'm an old guy, I like face-to-face meetings. When I see a prosecutor, the one thing you can't tell me is this doesn't happen because I'm a victim of it. It happened to me. You can't look me in the eye, and you will look me in the eye, and you will understand we're not going away till this is fixed. Missions and tactics, we do good stuff. Join the APA. Look, I close all my presentations this way. These guys up here, Continental soldiers that created America. The British Army was the largest superpower on earth in the 18th century. The saying was, the sun never sets on the British Empire, because they had colonies everywhere. They beat everybody. These guys, who are not professional soldiers, who were shopkeepers and hunters and deadbeats, said what's going on is unfair. They joined together with their neighbors. They picked up a musket and said, we're going to stand up to this injustice. And they kicked the shit out of the British Army, and they created America. People like Mark Vinson, people like you who stand up and speak truth to power, that's in our DNA. It is in our DNA to defend people that have no voice of their own. They have no chance of standing up to a billion-dollar insurance company. We're what they have. Come be a part of the team. Put your phone on that. Everyone take out your phone. Hopefully this one links. Put it on it. It'll take you right to join as a member. Save enough money to give to Cal and Melanie and Sean to help feed people in disasters. And come be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.